Hi, welcome to You So You. I'm Zoe. Today is the 18th of November. It's a Sunday morning. It's quite early and the light's not quite hitting the room the way I'd like it to be, which is why I've got the artificial light going on. I'm a teacher, but this is my blog about knitting, sewing and all the crafting that I do. The reason I mention the teacher bit is because after I film this I need to go and write some reports because we're in that time of year, which is why I'm filming quite so early in the morning. I do have my coffee to keep me going. It's just ordinary coffee, nothing fancy. I'm not going to turn into one of those podcasters like going, I'm drinking today, because let's face it, that's not what you're here for. This is not a tea and coffee blog. So I'm going to show you a few things I've been working on since I last filmed. I've been working on two projects, one for most of the time and one I just cast on Thursday. And I've got some plans to show you for things that are coming up, mainly sewing. Well, all sewing things. I've got things to show you for, and some things I'm really tempted by. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit towards the end about some of my favourite podcasts that I watch or listen to. I'm not going to mention all of the ones that I watch because we will be here all week. I'm just going to mention some of them. You can find me all over social media. On Instagram I am Zosie Mosey. You should be seeing all my handles coming across the bottom of the screen here. I am Zosie M on Ravelry, and I do have a Ravelry group set up at the moment. It's just me in there, so feel free to hop along. I am going to be putting some show notes up in there this week. The first time I put show notes up. I'll also be putting a link to them on the yousou.com blog, where I update various different things about knitting and sewing. I try not to duplicate the content from the blog onto the podcast. I try to keep them fairly separate to give you more to get your teeth into. I don't see the need to do the same thing on the video as I'm doing on the blog for most of the time. So that's there. My most recent blog prior to filming this was about using luxury fabrics and how you can make an everyday item feel that a little bit more special just by the fabric choice. I mean, I enjoy sewing with luxury fabrics, but I've realised that I don't use them as much as I'd like. So my most recent post over on the blog is about that. The posts tend to be quite short, sort of have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, 5 minutes break from your day. So it shouldn't take too long to work your way through those if you are so inclined. Moving on to my crafting content, now that I've done my admin-y stuff, I think I've done everything. Yes, I have done everything. Just checking my notes, got things written down in a notepad because yes, I'm doing show notes. I will be typing them up when I finish here. So the active works in progress that I've had on the go since we last spoke, mostly been a cardigan. I haven't been working very much on the test knit for Knitting Expat there over the past couple of weeks, simply because it's getting quite chilly here and I wanted something a bit heavier weight. So I've been working on a heavier weight cardigan. It's a colourwork cardigan. You're going to know it when you see it. In the test knit I've got until January to do it, so I'm not worried for time. It's a fingering weight jumper, so that I can do in a month anyway, and I've already made a good start on it, so that should be done by Christmas. But this project will be done by the end of the month. It's a worsted weight colourwork cardigan. There's my colours. It's all Universal Yarns worsted weight, which is an American yarn company that are available in the UK. I got these through Love Knitting. It's all 100% wool, and yeah, I love the brightness of this. This really fits in with my colour scheme for autumn, so I'm going to pop those down there in my basket. And the project itself, I cast this on Monday after I last filmed, so it's been going almost 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow since I cast it on. Oh my goodness, there we go. I am already halfway down my second sleeve on Andrea Mary's throwback sweater with this gorgeous colourwork yoke. So there's my first sleeve and there's my second sleeve. So I need to finish this sleeve and pick up and knit the collar, then you block it. And after you've blocked it, you pick up and knit bands down the front. I guess that's so that the front stops curling out before you pick it up, make it easy to pick. And then it's done. So I will have a worsted weight cardigan before the end of the month. It's an open front cardigan, so there's no need to worry about buttonholes and that kind of thing. Literally once it's off the needles and those bands are blocked, it's done, which is fantastic. And I'm really enjoying that knit. It's gone so quickly. I mean, I work full time, more than full time being a teacher, so to be able to get that done in the amount of time it's taken me is brilliant. I'm fully expecting to have it blocked by the end of this coming week. Because this time of year we're blocking inside, so it takes a bit longer, and being a thicker weight wool, I'm expecting it to take a bit of time as well to dry. So next weekend I should be picking up bands and getting that finished. So yeah, before the end of November I'll have a new cardie, which is excellent. The other thing that I've been knitting on, I cast this on Thursday, because Thursday it was the first day of the Blame Dunder Knit Along that is being run by Vicarious Knitting, which is Caroline. She's been podcasting a similar amount of time, slightly less than me, I think. Similar amount of time, roughly the same, couple of months. So we started about the same time. She's a bit better connected with some of the podcasters. She's met quite a few of them in person, is personal friends with quite a few of them. And they've encouraged her, as far as I gather, to start her own podcast, and my goodness, it's a great recommendation, but more about that later. So I bought myself, I'm going to show you the lid actually, a little Latvian mitten kit. This is knit by a Latvian, so it comes with everything you need apart from the needles, so you get all your wool. They recommend 1.5mm needles for a small hand, which is US size 3-0. I don't really understand American needle sizes, I'm afraid, being a British knitter. But that, can we see that? There we go. Yeah, so that's what they're labelled as. I'm using higher hires. You knit on across 5 DPNs for this pattern. I did the cuff on the 1.5mm, and then I've got US size 0s, which is 2mm needles for the rest of it, for the colour work, because colour work tends to tighten up your knitting, and from experience from doing the colourwork jumpers and colourwork socks, I found that I need to go up a needle size when I do colourwork. I didn't swatch particularly, well, I didn't swatch at all for these mittens. I figure if they fit me, I'll keep them. If they don't, I will gift them. So far, I have the cuff started. I am thinking they may well be slightly small for me, but we'll see once they're blocked. And I've got a Latvian braid done. That's my first Latvian braid. And I started the colourwork on the cuff. So that was cast on Thursday. I'm finding I can only do a few rows at a time, particularly when I was working on the 1.5s for this turned over cuff. So you knit a few rows, do a little picot edging row, fold it and pick up along the edge. So you've got that double, like you do on hats, that folded brim that you do for your hats. So you've got the same thing on the cuffs on these. And my goodness, that was fiddly with 1.5mm needles. The number of times I dropped stitches is ridiculous. But they're all on there now. I'm hoping it's going to block out to stretch a bit, because yeah, that's tiny, but we'll see. So that's those on the go for the Blame Dunder Knit Along, and I'll talk more about Caroline and the Knitting Vicarious podcast shortly. So that's the only things I've been actively knitting on over the past couple of weeks. As I say, I've really wanted to get that worsted weight cardigan finished before we get too cold, with the cycling to work and that kind of thing. It's nice to have a thicker layer on, and I tend to I prefer to wear cardigans than jumpers at the moment to working, because my classroom can get quite warm with the number of children that I have in there. So it's nice to have something that I can take off and throw back on again quite easily. Not that it's hard to put on a jumper, but I think a cardigan is just a little bit more practical for the time being. When it gets really cold, I'll be leaving the jumper on all the time, so it's not going to really matter. So that's that. And in terms of sewing projects coming up, so I haven't got the materials for any more knitting projects that you haven't already seen, that I'm planning on casting on in the foreseeable, apart from one cowl that I'm tempted by, but you've seen the hat that was made with the same yarn, so but more on that in a minute. So first of all, I haven't shown you this month's crafting box yet. As you know, I've already made the Citron trousers from my first ever crafting box. It's a box that I buy. I'm not sent it for free or anything. I buy it myself because I wanted to get it and see what it was like. So the crafting box comes like this. Comes every 2 months. It's around about the £30 mark. And inside it you get enough material to make one of the projects, and you get at least 2 pattern suggestions, and you get a little treat in there as well. So this month's box, I mean, you've probably seen a few of them on Instagram and what have you already so far, because they arrived a little while ago, and people have started making them. I'm not in a rush to make mine because bright yellow, which is great for the colour scheme. I'm not going to be doing the skirt. I'll talk about the fabric in a minute, but I'm not sure that we need the zip on this skirt. I'm probably going to make the jacket, and I'm thinking for spring into summer this is going to be a nice cover up, and it's being bright yellow, it's going to be really practical on the cycle to work. So both of those patterns are included in the box. So I could always make this in different fabric. It's not that I don't like the style of it, I just don't think with this fabric that zip is necessary. So I probably will make a skirt like that at some point, but I'm probably going to go for the jacket this time round. So moving on to what we've actually got, they've sent the zip, which is great. It's a metal zip, which is good because I found that plastic zips don't really last as long on jackets and coats as I would like. So nice metal heavyweight zip in black, so it's going to contrast with the main yellow fabric. They've sent this gorgeous blue cotton, which on the skirts they've got it done as a hair tie, so I might do something like that if I have enough left over. But mainly this will be used for finishing seams. There's not a huge amount of it there. It's a reasonable amount. There's just not. I don't think it's going to make me a shirt. Let's put it that way. So it's most likely going to be linings and pockets and that kind of stuff. And the main fabric. Oh my goodness! It's scuba, so it's stretchy, but it's faux suede. So it's got a really soft touch to it. If you look at the size, I've never worked with scuba before, so it's the first time I've actually handled it. It's quite thick and it's quite stretchy. So you treat it like a jersey. It's not going to need much done in the way of finishing seams, but because the jacket isn't fully lined as far as I can tell, that's why you've got the blue dotty to do your seam finishing. You get all your paper. I go for the paper pattern option in my box, so I get the paper pattern pieces in here, which saves me printing off and using ink and having to crawl around and piece it together. Although I do that occasionally. Excuse the rustling, I've just got the little treats from inside the box to show you what they gave us this month. So they send you the thread that you need. And this month, I haven't had one of these since I was a little girl. It's a sweetie bracelet. Really quite excited about that. Possibly more excited than I am about the fabric, which is a little bit sad, but hey. So let's put all that back in the box. So at some point I'll be making that, and obviously I'll show it to you once I've made it, but like I say, I'm not in a rush because I'm aiming for that for spring. So that might be done over the Christmas break before I go up to Dad's, or possibly when I get back. I'm up in Grantham again for Christmas this year. I say again, I haven't been there for Christmas yet because I only moved in this year, but I'm going to my dad's for Christmas rather than my mum's. So that's that. The other sewing plan that I've got on the go at the moment, I'll put my box down there. Minerva Craft, as you know, I do projects for their blog, and it's going to be around about Christmas when you start seeing my blog posts coming out. I've done the Bettine dress in that maritime polycotton print, but I did it as a skirt and top. And I've done the Freya dress in a tan velvet velour. This time, when they sent around the list of fabrics, I saw this particular fabric and thought, oh, that would make quite a nice, luxurious, glitzy Stella tracksuit, the hoodie and the tracksuit bottoms from the Tilly and the Buttons stretch book. But obviously I'm looking at it online, so I hadn't felt the fabric. And it's a medium weight fabric, it is a stretch fabric, it's a knit. But when I got it, I actually thought again. So this is the fabric, hopefully that is showing up. So it's navy with this gold sort of lurex lame thread running through it. And it's a knit fabric. So yes, it's a stretch fabric. It's not like your normal jersey though, it's not smooth. If I just hold up a bit there, if you can see, but it's a looser gauge than most jerseys. So it's not as, there's a slight sort of see-throughness to it, which is not a problem. It would make quite a nice Stella hoodie, and it would be fine for a pair of joggers that I was going to like slap tried in the house. But there's a lot more drape to it than I was expecting. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll do a dress in it. Then I thought, oh, it's a bit, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with it unlined as a skirt, and not sure I want to be lining a stretchy fabric. So that's still in the back of my head, possibly a skirt. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it'd make a good t-shirt and sort of for going out to the pub over the festive season, that kind of thing. So that's a possibility. But what I've decided to do with this lovely navy glittery fabric, to get the most wear out of it, because I do love this fabric, I'm thinking I need something that I'm going to wear with something else quite a lot. So a dress might be a bit too much. I'm not going to wear that all year round. Tops and t-shirts, absolutely, quite possibly going to do that. But I did get with Sew Magazine this on the cover. So this is a Simplicity hacking pattern for a cardigan. Not totally decided what length to do yet. So it would look great in this full length. That would use most of the fabrics. I've got 3 meters, and that full length for my size is going to use 2 3/4 meters. Or actually 2 3/4 yards, so a little bit under 2 3/4 meters. So it's going to be using a decent chunk of the fabric. May or may not have enough left over to do perhaps a Largo vest out of afterwards, we'd have to see. Although the shorter length, so the medium length, which is just here, they've shown it belted, that uses 2 yards. So that probably would have enough fabric left over for a top to go underneath it, like a little twin set. And I quite like the idea of this shorter length, almost sort of waist length, crop length cardi as well, with the top underneath as like a twin set. So that's what I'm thinking with this sparkly navy fabric. So we'll see what I end up with there. So I'm going to do some pattern tracing and cutting out and things over the next week or so to get that done in time. So that's all the things I have physically on hand to show you this week. But I did want to talk about some of the things that I'm tempted by. So the Latvian mittens, they're part of the Blame Dunder Knit Along, which is, don't worry about anything else you've got to knit what makes you happy. Cast it on with gay abandon and put everything else to one side. So I've been thinking about all these things I've got in my queue that I'm really tempted to make, but just haven't had the opportunity to as of yet. Sometimes it's because the pattern's not been released yet, or I don't have the yarn for it, that kind of thing. First one that I'm going to show you is a Vullenvine design. It's a new design. I've actually taken a photo from the email that she sent out with her shop update information. Not that I've ever bought any Vullenvine. A, I'm not quick enough on the trigger, and B, it's not cheap. I mean, she's great dyer, absolutely fantastic colours, and I'm sure her yarn is of an amazing quality. But I do have budgetary constraints that are personal to me that mean I can't always get the yarns that I lust after. and Wool and Vine is one of those. I would want to be knitting jumpers out of Wool and Vine, and hand-dyed yarn for jumpers is expensive. I've mentioned it before, I do tend to go for the commercials when it comes to garments. So this is the sparkling cider hat that Wool and Vine has designed. So it's fingering weight and mohair held together, I believe. Just trying to get the window reflection off for you. And it's got beads on it. So it's beautiful. So that is definitely a temptation for when that pattern gets released. I then have a whole list of things from Ravelry that I am very tempted by. So I'm going to show you them in no particular order, just the order that they're open on the iPad. Largely because I haven't worked out how to insert the photos where they just sort of sit here and I'm still here yet. Working on that. So first of all, we're going to go to Tin Can Knits, and a lot of people have already knitted this pattern. I'm just going to show you the view of the sleeve, because this is what really attracts me to it. So it's stocking stitch pullover, apart from this band of garter down the sleeve. Tin Can Knits, if you don't know, they write quite simple patterns, easy to follow patterns, but they write them from newborn up to adult, and the designs are really popular. You see them all over the place. They've got a collection that is designed for beginner knitters, so if you've never knitted a garment before, Tin Can Knits is a good place to start. So there's the Flaxlight in all its glory. So that is one temptation for the Blame Dunder Knit Along. So I'm just going to lose that page and show you the next one. Now the next one I saw knitted out of sock blanks by the lovely Grace and Babbles Travelling Yarns, and it is the Drift. So we've got this textured yoke, 3/4 length sleeve, pullover in fingering weight. I'm very much drawn to the fingering weight garments at the moment because they're good for layering. So that's designed by Kristen Finley. The next one I'm going to show you, my next temptation, I'll show you a couple of different pictures of this one. This is by Suzanne Sommer, and it is the Hoodie Shawl Cardigan. So it's a cardigan with a hood, but if you look at the back of it, the top is shaped like a shawl, and the hood has that same shape, so it sort of follows on between the two. So yeah, I really like that. I like the way you can play around with colours on that one. So that's been in my queue for quite a while. Then we have the Elton by Joji Locatelli. So this is fingering weight and mohair in stripes, so you're contrasting the texture and not just the colour. And I do have quite a bit of mohair and fingering weight left over from other projects, so I may even have yarn to do that with. And the next one is one that I do have the yarn for, because I test knit the hat that goes with this particular project. So when I bought the yarn for the hat, I bought enough to make the cowl as well, because I knew that was coming out at about the same time. That is the Cumulus cowl from Knitting Expat Designs, the lovely Mina Phillip. Obviously I've knitted quite a lot of her stuff. I'm test knitting a jumper for her at the moment. Her designs are easily memorisable, easy to follow, well laid out, and extremely closely tech edited and checked to make sure the numbers work. So she's another one that's a good pattern writer to go to if you are relatively new to knitting, because everything is so clearly explained and you can really trust the patterns. And then we have So Faded by Andrea Mowry. This and her Comfort Fade cardie are two that I've had on my list for a while. This one's a fingering weight, I believe, and the Comfort Fade cardie is DK. Yeah, this one's fingering weight. The Throwback is my first Andrea Mowry pattern that I've followed, and it's so quick to knit. The instructions are really clear. So yeah, really enjoying that one. And then we have from Petite Knit the No Frills. Now this is a really simple raglan basic sweater pattern, but oh my goodness, what you can do with that. You could do stripes, you could do different textures, you could hold it with different yarns together and marl it. There's a lot you can do with that blank canvas of a sweater, and it's so practical to have a simple sweater in your wardrobe that you can just throw on with anything. So that I'm very tempted by. Now we get to the new patterns that are on my temptation list. They're both by Skeindir. In fact, there are 3 Skeindir patterns on my list. I need to dig up the picture of the third one. So the first off, I'm going to show you the Hyltland. I think I'm saying that right. Not sure. Go and watch Skeindir. She says it properly. So it's the Old Norse word for Shetland, and these are Fair Isle socks. So I've done some colourwork socks of Skeindir's before. This cardigan is a Skeindir design. She's a Norwegian designer living in London. She does colourwork extremely well, and you learn a lot from her when you're looking at her patterns and her podcast. She's a teacher. Well, she's actually lectures at university at the moment. She's working on a PhD, so she's reduced back her podcasting schedule a bit at the moment, so she can work on her thesis, which is highly understandable. But the amount of information that she packs into a single podcast is phenomenal, and again, I'll be mentioning her a bit later on. To find the picture of the other pattern of hers. Oh, there's two. One's not been released individually yet. I'm so hoping it individually gets released in English. At the moment, it's Norwegian, but it's a fade cardigan with colourwork, and it's beautiful. And I really hope that's going to come out in English because I don't speak Norwegian. That one is called Skumring. Totally mangly Norwegian. There we go. And the final one I'm going to show you is another new one from Skeindir. It is in English and Norwegian. It's part of an ebook. You get 8 patterns in the ebook. So it costs a little bit more, but you're getting 8 patterns. That's it's in the Blade Garn. Again, mangling Norwegian. Sorry, Norway. And this one is called Isbray, which I think means iceberg or mountain, something like that. She tells you in her podcast. But it's a colourwork sweater with this lovely icebergy, mountainous yoke on it. So I'll just make sure I jot that down on my list to put in my show notes because I'd forgotten about Skumring. So I shall just make sure that's added onto my temptations list for you. I will be putting links to the Ravelry page for these patterns when I do my show notes. The other temptation that I have is a jumper for my partner, and we've been looking at patterns and getting an idea for the sorts of things he likes. So I will put a bundle together on Ravelry, which I will link to in the show notes, so that you can go and have a look and see what man patterns we've come across. We were discussing actually yesterday, because I picked up a magazine when I was in town doing my food shop. We picked up The Knitter, because there were some patterns in it that I knew I'd want to knit. There's about 6 patterns in here that I'd like to knit, like the one on the front in particular. And there's some Coop Knits sock patterns, so Rachel Coopy patterns, for like 3 pairs of socks that are very tempting, and a few cardigans in there, and there's a bit of history of knitting in there too, so that's worth a get. I occasionally pick up The Knitter. I don't get it every week or every month or anything. I might do at some point because it is quite a good magazine, and the cover price is about the price of a single pattern, so it's good value for money. But this led to a discussion with myself and my partner about the lack of male patterns in sewing and knitting magazines, and how it can actually be a bit trickier to find decent male patterns. So there's definitely a gap in the market there. Men wear clothes too. Men need to be warm in the winter too. So yeah, I am intending on knitting a jumper for my other half at some point. I am quite a selfish knitter though, so my projects will come first. And I've got a few Christmas makes to do as well, so they'll be coming first before I do a jumper for him. And I need to finish the scarf that I started last winter for him. It's plain brioche, it's not a difficult knit, but it's black and grey acrylic because that's what he wanted. So he could sling it in the washing machine if need be, which is fine, practical considerations and all that. But it's just not so much fun to knit because I'm used to knitting with wools now rather than acrylics, and it's black and grey. It's not exciting, but he does already have the hat that got finished last winter, so they're on the go. So I'll put a bundle together of man patterns on Ravelry. So it'll be man knitting patterns, because for those of you that are sewists rather than knitters, Ravelry is an online social media database platform for knitting and crochet and weaving. So it's mainly knitters on there, a few crocheters, or it's mainly knitters that I've come across, a few crocheters, and a few weavers as well. But it's not really a sewing database. A good database of sewing patterns would be the Fold line, and you can filter in much the same way on both platforms to find gender and company and that kind of thing.